Hello everybody, this is Baniac for Bricks, and I am here today to take a look at all 6 of the Bionicle 2006 Matoran from Voya Nui. These are sets number 8721 through 8726. We'll get further into each of their details as we look at each figure individually. I figured it would have been easier to make this video with all 6 combined instead of 6 separate reviews, so let's get right to it. We'll get to one figure at a time and talk about each one. The first figure we have is set number 8721. This one's name is Velika. This has 21 pieces and retailed for $4. Most of the other ones also retailed for $4, were available in a small box, had a fold-out instruction manual, and also on that same manual showed some extra instructions to build combo models. We'll get to those a little bit later, but first let's talk about this figure. There's nothing really individual about all these figures as far as I know in their appearance in the Voya Nui storyline, but I think they all have some pretty unique designs. This one particularly shares a similar design with another one we'll get into a little bit later. This one has the same mask as Onewa from Metro Nui, and most of them in this Matoran line follow the same suit. They are all masks from Voya Nui. Not Voya Nui, Metro Nui. As far as this one, it has a double ball joint for each of the arms, and that therefore gives it a lot of extension and also posability, so you can have the arms going in all different directions. And we have only 2 small ball joints that are used for the legs, but the legs themselves do not have joints in them. It is a one-piece thing. So it doesn't have a lot of posability, but you still got a lot of different movements you can make with this figure. The head also has some ball joints in it, and you might notice the body has the same piece used as the feet. That's kind of a characteristic some of the other ones share as well. This figure is 8722 Kazi, and this also has about 25 pieces to its set. Most of the other information, like I said, is the same across all of them. So, as far as this figure, it's kind of minimal in its appearance, and really one of my least favorite in these, but also one of my favorites of these. I like its body composition, because it really has a unique way of using certain parts to make up its body, and a lot of these are very easy to build. But what I do find wrong with this one, it doesn't have a lot of unique characteristics in its movement. First example, the legs themselves only have these small joints, actually small joint per leg, right at the feet. So you really can't have them move much with this figure. And with this one, you do have, again, the ball joints for the arms, but it kind of gets old as far as posing the tools on this figure. I mean, how far can you really go with the same poses? But I do really appreciate the work put into the main torso. That's actually a unique design, and the only one of all of these that has that design for the torso. Pretty cool, but its functionality kind of lacks. Also, I wanted to mention this is the only one of them that does not have the same head as the others. This one is a very simple skull-type mask. Not really sure exactly what it is, but it doesn't just seem right. It seems like there's something missing behind there, so it looks better from the front than it does from the back. Our next figure is 8723 Piruk, and this one actually has a cool design to its body as well. This one comes with 27 pieces, one of the most as far as this series, and it's actually a pretty interesting body, a little bit different from some of the other ones. The way that the arms are attached on the back is slightly different from some others. I think it's shared with the traits of one of the other ones, but I like how it has all of these Borak eye pieces that are used. A bunch of the other ones do, but not as much. They only have 2, where this one has 4. It also has a little bit more characteristic to it in that it has these nice claws. I don't think these claws have come very often in a silver color, so it's very nice to get for the parts. It doesn't have a lot of posability, though. That's the only downside to it, because it has these shortened arms that are in an L shape, so it's very easy for it to, to get old quickly as far as posing it. You could still move it around a bit and try to stand it on one leg and balance it, but as far as the range of motion, it's not very useful. Especially, actually, on the top, it's a little bit hard to make it around in certain areas, but you still get a couple different poses throughout. Next up, we have 8724 Garan. Now this one, as I mentioned earlier, is similar to 8721 Velika. It's pretty much the same in terms of body composition. The only difference is really being the tools that are used and the color scheme that is throughout the figure. So pretty much the same thoughts on that one as in this one. It does have a large range of motion on its arms because they are much longer and you could do a little bit more in posability with them, but the legs are shorter. I actually like this figure a lot because of its tools. These are ones that are pretty, for this figure is actually now cheap to get in any of the Bionicle sets. Previously, they weren't too easy to find, but with this figure, it looks pretty nice. It also breaks up some of the other tools that were used by other figures, which are traditionally used by Toa and or Rakshi, I believe, but most of them Toa. So this one is actually somewhat used by a Toa, but it's actually more of a decorative item. Still unique for the tool design. Next up, we have 8725. This is Balta. It only has 22 pieces and is a little bit interesting. There's a little bit more advertised than some of the other ones, but I'd have to say as far as its, posability and composition, it's pretty standard compared to the other Matoran from this line. Although it does have a little bit of difference. I do like its color scheme in that it's not only the dark red, but also a yellowish orange, and only 4 parts, but still at least breaks up some of the color with this figure. What I find interesting about its posability compared to the others, the back piece can just tilt up and down. So you could give that a little bit more of a range of motion in terms of moving the arms back and forth. I remember sometimes I'd have it almost like a helicopter because it just looks too easy to make it so. But you still get a little bit more posability in that function instead of it being a fixed shoulder for both sides. As I said before, the legs are pretty standard, and the head also does still have the ball joint motion in it. You can still get some cool poses out of that. And last but not least, we have 8726 Dalu. This one has 25 pieces, so it is on the higher end of pieces used for Matoran. This one has a very different body type from most of the other Matoran. It does have the same part that's used for the head and attaching there, and that piece throughout most of the Matoran is the same as their feet, by the way. But this one, as you can see from the back, has a lot of difference in how it is arranged, and that difference is actually really cool. It allows it for a lot more articulation and movement with, lots of freedom. So you can move the arms and legs to lots of different places and make them move all different ways. Now with this one, I notice it has Borak Kal pieces for the arms and legs. Again, they are much like the other L-shaped ones, but they are larger, so it does make it a little bit easier to move them around and to still pose with them. It is a pretty cool looking figure overall. Now, as I briefly mentioned in the beginning, each of these figures can combine to make another larger model. I forgot to mention in the beginning that each of these are separately sold in a box with a small page of instructions. On one page, or one side of it, it shows you the instructions to build the Matoran. But on the other side, it shows you part of the instructions to build the combo model. You need to have 3 of them together, as shown here, to build the next model, which we'll show you. There we have the completed model from the 3 combined. This one is called Lava Hawk. It's actually a pretty cool design. I really like how this one came out, and it's not really supposed to be based on the Matoran. I think it's just based on the wildlife surrounding the area. But it is a really cool idea and pretty neat build. It's got a lot of, consistency with the colors, which I really like. There's not really a lot of brown used, but I like the mix of green and red that's used throughout. It has a couple different posable features. You have the tail in the back, which could kind of simulate the lava portion of it. You can move this up and down and all around. It's actually a lot of maneuvering for a tail. The legs themselves are pretty easy to move, so you could have it in a running motion, or it could claw onto something, I like the claws being used there. You could also angle the body a bit for different poses. The wings also, they're kind of small just because of the pieces, but they still make up for size compared to the rest of the model. And you could get different flight poses out of that. You could also move the neck for quite a bit and have it in a scouring motion, like maybe it's looking for something or it sees something and it's ready to go after it. It's actually a really cool build. If you check out the instructions online, look for Lava Hawk Bionicle instructions, you'll be sure to find it, and it's pretty impressive in my opinion. Well put together, good size to it, and let's take a look at our next combo model. So now our 3 remaining Matoran will now transform into a combo model. This model is called the Dagger Spider, and it's actually pretty cool looking, and I can kind of see the spider resemblance. You can see the eyes peering out there. We have the small pincers in the front which just come to meet each other, so you can have a little bit of a snapping motion. And this model actually has a lot of articulation on the limbs because of the double joints for each of the legs. And I think it kind of lives up to the name of Dagger Spider, since all of these points are pretty sharp looking. And, I mean, the pieces are designed to look sharp. So, it's actually pretty cool looking from all angles, but it had a little bit of trouble when building it, mainly with a few pieces that I had to switch out because it was unclear between a translucent blue and a translucent light blue that was used throughout the model, and also just the difference of axles that I was trying to use to build it properly. But it still, poses well. It has a lot of different movements. It's got a good size to it and takes a lot of the pieces from the Matoran. I like how the mask is used as a shell over the top of it, if you notice that from the top angle. On the bottom it is pretty plain though, but that's not a big deal to me because you wouldn't normally see it that much from the bottom angle. But it's a cool looking model. It could be improved though a little bit. I think these pincers could definitely come forward a little bit more just by switching these pieces around, but it's still looking pretty cool. So overall, these figures are okay as a group in that you could, combine them and make some interesting models with them. But overall, the basic functions for them are the same. You get a lot of pieces that are just used for making ball joint arm movements. And that's something that at the time of these release, it was common. So I'm not really sure how that goes. They do have interesting designs for each of the models, at least most of them, because we already pointed out these two are pretty much the same thing, but with different colors. And I don't know, I thought they were kind of an interesting building experience, just with small parts, but nothing that could really, last in the long run, in my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you guys think about all these models, as well as the combo models that these were created into.